Of wrestling, the start of so many of the most iconic feuds in history. Without belts, there's no Austin versus Rock, no Sting versus Flair, and no Mahal versus Orton. But in wrestling, so many things are changing all of the time, and that includes the title designs themselves. But the changes don't always make it to TV, so let's take a look at a few designs that were never used. Starting us off, we have the most iconic belt in all of wrestling, the Big Gold. But did you know the most iconic belt almost looked way different? Initially, the NWO actually requested the NWO lettering on the main plate, but overall they decided to go against it. Now, years later, Leather Rebels, who made all of the NXT belts, they got the rights and actually sold prototypes of this belt, which is pictured. Now, somewhere out there, there's actually like the design drawn up, but I couldn't find the picture of that one. Keeping with the Big Gold theme, next we have the Vegas Big Gold. Now, this belt was created when Ric Flair left WCW and took the World Heavyweight title with him. The reason why it was at the time when you were world champion in WCW or NWA, you had to actually put a deposit down to hold the belt because it was an expensive belt. Well, Ric Flair's contract expired. He wanted his money back. They refused. So in turn, he took the belt and used it on WWF television. He proclaimed he was the real world champion. WCW wasn't a fan of this, of course, and sued, which caused WWF to pull the actual Big Gold off TV. And in turn, they had this created, but they decided against using it entirely. I don't know. I think Ric Flair won the WWF title at the Rumble, so they just didn't need it. But this belt ended up actually being used in like one segment or two in WCW of Ric Flair in Vegas, and that's why it's called the Vegas Big Gold belt. Now, there was one other belt that was created and was never used on TV because of this Ric Flair lawsuit with WCW, and that is the Real World's Championship title belt, which was actually just a tag team title belt that was repainted. They actually removed anything that said tag team. So on the banner right there, it usually said tag team wrestling champion. They removed the tag team and they just put some gems on it. And honestly, this thing looks really cool. I like the blacked out. I like the blue behind the world. But yeah, the tag banners were removed and replaced with gems. This belt was only ever used on house shows, and if it was used on WWF television, they had it blurred out. So technically this belt was never used. So now we're going to go over a couple of the most widely known unused belts. That one is the Rock Brahma Bull belt. Now the story goes that this belt was lost in the mail, but there's conflicting reports because The Rock claims that WWE just decided to just not use the title, which is a shame because it's an awesome design. They had this created for The Rock to like kind of counteract Stone Cold Smoking Skull. This is probably the most like widely known unused belt. It's even got a replica in WWE shop. But the next belt we just recently found out about, and I believe it's the most recent unused belt that we know about, and that is Edge's Rated R Spinner belt. Now with this title, Edge was told he was getting a custom belt to rival John Cena's spinner, so Edge went home, he started designing the title up, finished it, presented to management just to be told that no, your belt's not getting used. You're just going to have a modified spinner with your logo in the middle. Some people have made this belt. It just doesn't look that good. I'm not even a big fan of the actual design that Edge kind of drew up, but that's just my opinion. Next up, we have the most recent belt that could have actually been used, at least to everyone's knowledge, and that is the unused 205 Live Cruiserweight tag titles. Now, these were leaked by Jack Gallagher, who stated in an interview that these belts were made. They're just sitting in a crate backstage, and there were renderings that were leaked. I don't know how they got leaked. I don't even remember, but I do think the design looks great. But I really don't think the WWE would have handled these titles well at all, especially how they handled the cruiserweight title and